where we have honest conversations from an honest place.
If you're a new listener, we welcome you. If you're one of our old listeners who's been supporting us on this fairly new journey, we also welcome you. I want to give a special shout out to our listeners in Poland by saying Vitam to you.
Vitam to you.
For those listening from Mexico, que está pasando?
Está pasando.
We appreciate you.
Thank
those
you.
Listening from Canada, we thank you as well. And those who have been listening incognito, we see you in your unseen state, and we truly appreciate you. It's people like you that make us keep going. Give us the drive and the fuel to keep going. So thank you.
I just want to say to our one Polish listener, you made my husband's day. So thank you for listening to us. Vitam for real, for real. Thank you for listening, and thank you to everyone. We're so grateful to be doing this together and to, have people all over listening to us. What a blessing. So we're very excited to be here today. Before we go into our topic, let's do a little bit of a check-in.
All right.
How are you doing, Prince?
I am good. I am preparing for church AGM, which is this weekend.
Oh, yeah. That's tomorrow. Yeah.
It's just the Sunday after the day we record. So, yeah, preparing for that. That's on my mind. But obviously, excited, really excited and pleased to be on today. And overall, I'm doing well. Been a busy week, but thankful that everything's been put in order ahead of Sunday. So that's excited.
Yeah.
And how about you? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. A few things are sparking joy today.
All right.
We're recording from our couch, which is more comfortable, so super relaxed. Hopefully, we're able to think straight and not be too relaxed. And then we're all laughing about our neighbors who literally changed overnight. We've been living here.
They're the same. But
No, I don't know. Okay, so there's no proof that anyone moved into our unit, like the unit above us.
Yeah.
But the personality of the neighbors literally switched overnight.
They do karaoke now.
No, they're very musical now.
Yeah.
They do karaoke with a bunch of people.
But I think they did that before, right?
No, we never used
to play music in the room.
Yeah. No, they were musical. And I think it was just one person who was honing on his skills. So it would be they play the ukulele and the drums at night.
Yeah.
And I could live with that. But now it's musical all the time. There's the guitar, there's the keyboard. Just in the past hour, we've heard the guitar, the keyboard, the singing, and the karaoke. And I'm sure shortly we're gonna hear the drums. So I'm surprised. I don't know what happened. It's
the kids have picked up music. They're trying to really hone their skills as do it professionally, maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, it's generally sonorous, so.
If you say so.
But anyway, this is they say in life you live, you learn, you pivot. So this is just a funny new reality. Yeah. But I'm doing good. Yeah, honestly, same old work, church, podcast, life, killing with friends.
All right.
No complaints. Regular adult stuff. Oh. Yeah. So, and I got to go to a Raptors game last weekend with my sister. Yeah. It was amazing.
It was fun.
It was a bad loss.
A bit frustrated with how they played.
I wasn't frustrated.
I mean, you did come back a bit frustrated.
No. Toyo was first. My sister is Toyo. She was first. I started supporting the opposing team, literally.
That's something we should be saying on the podcast, because that's not. You went.
No, I became a Texas girly because the Toronto Bulls were not doing well at all, and I was like, I can't be associated with this. So it was very funny. Yeah, but I went with my sister. It was amazing because why didn't I go with you, Prince?
Just. Not really big on basketball, but
yeah,
we don't really need to go into
yeah. We don't need to lose any listeners over that, because some people really love basketball. But
no, I mean, I love it. I'm not really big on the Raptors now as well. So
yeah, that's
so
true.
A few things, but
Raptors is not good for anybody's blood pressure right now.
It was a great experience for you, just overall.
Yeah, it was fun. I had a really good time. So anyway, that was a nice little catch up. Yeah. So let's go into the topic of today. You want to tell us the topic?
Church attendance in the post-COVID world.
Post-COVID world, COVID was what, 2020? And now it's 2025.
2022, right?
I think the anniversary of the lockdown is literally just passed, right? Today is March 29th.
I've never really used that sentence anniversary of the lockdown, but
Yeah, of the first lockdown
Just
in
go-
Canada, or in Toronto at least,
yeah,
was about a week ago.
Right.
Like, so officially 5 years.
yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. So what made you think about this topic, Prince? Like,
Well,
what's
I mean, I think a few things. So hopefully we can dive into them in different.
yeah, of course.
Just, I'm thinking through as a pastor, but also as someone who's obviously has friends doing life with people in different seasons of life. And one of the things I'm engaging with in this season is the dynamics of people who go to church every week, go to church every other week. Those who don't really go to church, just prefer to watch online.
Yeah.
But they count that as church, which
Yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah.
And then there's those who, since COVID hit, the dynamics of their walk with God in terms of church attendance has looked very different.
Yeah.
And they've not placed, I wouldn't say they haven't placed, but it just hasn't occurred as the same. It doesn't take the same level of priority or importance before. So all those things rolled into one. It's kind of what drove this topic, like birthed this topic in my heart.
Is there a demographic that you think about specifically when you think of like what generation or demographic has been impacted by church? Like, what generation's church attendance has been most impacted by COVID? Or would you say it's the same
I think
across
it's
the
wide
board?
across the board because once it's easy to try and limit it to, well, maybe it's the younger generation, maybe the Gen Zs, maybe the younger millennials, like, but it's across the board because there are those who are even older who had health concerns and
That's true.
did not want to go in
And haven't come back since.
really gone back. So maybe they occasionally come back and sometimes they still wear a mask. They do. And then there's just others who found out. So there's a generation who knew church attendance as church attendance. I go to church. I have to go to church. Maybe it was passed down by their parents and all that, but all of a sudden, watching online brought out a new reality in the sense that maybe you don't have to. So the way I see it is, there's a generation whose faith was heavily formed and birthed by the faith of their parents. And during the whole lockdown period, their faith finally took on a life of its own for themselves. And unfortunately, if the things that their parents were asking them to do was just done because their parents asked them to do it, they never really did it for themselves, it didn't transmit. So it kind of stopped. And then church attendance became a thing of, if I have to decide, I'm not really sure I want to go. So it's things like that I think engaging with them, those are the things when I think in terms of the younger generation, there's that new reality in terms of what that looks like. But then for the older generation, it's like a bunch of factors. For those who maybe were just struggling to make it because of other things going on, all of a sudden there's like, I can watch online and just go for my afternoon shifts today.
Yeah, that's
trying to make it to church, come back home.
Yeah.
Maybe make something for the kids and then go. I can just watch online and then go. So all that has played into it. And so I just thought it's a topic to kind of engage with because I do think there's assumptions and then there's also presumptions.
Yeah.
There's also things that we have about church attendance, especially with the online dynamic, which will come up later in this episode.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And I like what you said as well. Like, and before we go into the specific questions that we have prepared, I think it's very good to actually reflect on how church has changed post-COVID, right? I would say probably one thing I could think of off the top of my head is most churches now have a online stream.
Yeah, a good number of them.
Yeah, but we didn't have that before COVID.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was some who prioritized it.
Yeah,
not the way
it was like the big churches.
Not necessarily the big
churches. I think the big churches, like
for example, our previous church, the Spanish-speaking congregation that were renting out of the building, actually had an online component. Now, they didn't do flamboyant stuff.
Like online video and audio?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
They were recording to their YouTube. Now, it might not have been getting a lot of views, but that was not really, they just wanted to record for the sake of it.
Okay.
So when COVID hit, we leaned a little bit on their infrastructure.
I remember.
Before we ended up getting our own setup.
Yeah, that's true.
So some have had it. Others have done like massive things with it. Like it's just, I'm reflecting on it now because growing up, there was a church called Deeper Life. It's still in existence, massive.
Yeah.
And they used to have a Monday Bible study that used to be streamed and watched all across the country, and probably even
Okay,
beyond
but
the
that's a
country.
huge church.
No, it is a
That's
huge
a huge
church. But just in terms of the leverage that in such a way that before COVID, we might not really have paid as much attention to it, but now it's a genius idea.
Yeah.
Just in terms of what the audience they were reaching.
I think it would be very hard to find a church right now that doesn't have some sort of like online component. So that's one thing. Number one, live streams
Yeah.
are now more common. Anything else? I can't think of anything else. Like people don't wear masks as much anymore.
Yeah.
With social distancing isn't as much. I think people got more comfortable with not hugging at church as well. I find that like the concept of personal space is something that has stuck with us.
Yeah. I mean,
since COVID as well. Like
Yeah.
it's now normal to not give somebody a handshake or a hug when you see them and just wave.
it's not really normal for me because as a pastor, you really don't you have to do one of them, handshake, hugs, and everything. I'm not actually big on the hugs and everything, but I do. It's a good way of kind of
Yeah.
greeting the people.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. There's room for you
Yeah.
to not offer any
Exactly.
of those and
Exactly.
it not to feel like, and at the very least, you go with the handshake. 'cause
And you know
that's
what?
just
It's
more
less socially acceptable to go in now when you're like sick as well.
When
I feel
you're
like
still
once
at
you say
home.
you're sick, people are like, don't worry,
I
we'll see.
watched online. So, yeah, this
And people are happy that you watched online.
It's
No
a
one is
whole
expecting
new
you to
world.
be, no one is
Yeah.
expecting you to thug it out. Okay, yeah. So those are some interesting things that have changed about, if we think about any more, we'll talk about it.
yeah.
So let's talk about it. So Prince, why is it important to go to church? Why does church attendance matter?
I think there's a few things. First off, the understanding of attending church for me is part of a growth experience. It's something that has to do with, if you would actually grow as a Christian, then you must submit to Christian community. So that's the key thing. It's not just showing up to say, well, I'm part of this organization that is so and so church. This is where we worship. It's just submitting to the growth platform of Christian community. And I think for everything you can read in the Bible, study, watch a sermon, all those things are actually really good. Your walk with God fully comes alive when it comes alive amongst others.
Yeah.
That's the design and the blueprint for the faith walk. Now, whether you're doing life with 5 people, 10 people, a home church, a church of 15 people, doesn't really matter. The key thing is that you're doing life with people, because that's where you get tested. That's where you show up for people. That's where the fruits of the Spirit and the life that you're called to live out as a Christian gets to find expression. So, and that's where you get tested as well. When people get on your nerves, it's one thing to say, you know what, I love God and I love people, and you're in home all day, and there's really no one else
That's
kind of
true, to test your patience or
But
anything
when
like
you
that.
go
Yeah.
outside and someone ignores you and you wave to them, but maybe they didn't see you, but you wave to them twice, and the person was maybe just having a bad day or just didn't see you.
Yeah.
And then you're like, that's why I don't even like coming to church, because you greet people and they don't say hi back. So there's all these dynamics in it, right? And obviously it's getting to understand that that's just the nature of what it looks like to be in church. Like, so for me, going to church is important because it's an opportunity to submit to the community of believers where you can grow and get encouragement for your walk with God. That's amongst other things, but I wouldn't list out everything. I think that one is the key one, and maybe if others come up, we can.
Yeah, and I think church attendance is also, it basically helps you to build a community that can be there for you in tough times and good times as well. Helps you to find Christian friends. Church attendance helps you to, for some people, it helps them to find a Christian spouse if that's what they're looking for. Church attendance is fun.
It is.
It gives you the opportunity to leave your house on the weekend and do something productive and to be with other people that are like-minded as well. There's a lot of great things. Some people go to church for business contacts. I don't recommend that, but there's many reasons and many benefits of going to church.
Yeah.
So I like that. So is this the only metric to gauge if a church is growing? Church attendance. Before we do that, like talk to us a little bit about your current context, Prince.
What would you like?
You're a pastor of a church,
yes,
right? So, what does church attendance look like right now? And what would you say that church attendance is like a good metric that you're using to gauge the growth of the church that you're pastoring right now? Let's make it personal.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's important. Like, so Now, once again, I'm learning and I'm growing, having been a lead pastor, but having pastored for over 5 years, but then been a lead pastor for over 1 year. So one of the things I'm learning to do is understand the place of church attendance in context of overall church growth.
Yeah.
So for me, what church attendance looks like in terms of my context now is we'll probably have on any given weekend somewhere between 270 to 300 people attending church, and then maybe another 150 watching online. So at the time of the service, and then the views could go up because other people get to watch it. But so that's the core in terms of those that attend in church. And I think for me, every once in a while, the numbers could go maybe over 300, but by and large, it's usually somewhere between 270 to 300 in the given day. And the demographic is, we do have a very strong population that's over 60 in terms of representation. But we have a growing young adult population, and then amazing children population as well. So, and then there's also those who are, I think, the middle age as well.
Yeah,
so
the people in between, I feel bad for them.
It's because once again, it's making sure that church is relevant and also is catering to the different spiritual and ministerial needs of the people in different contexts. So, but that's what it looks like personally for me in terms of my ministry context. Now, if you're asking me where do I place it in terms of importance, I think it's very important. I've just learned to not see it as the only metric to gauge growth, because there's internal growth and there's external growth.
Okay.
So, but the internal growth is where the people become more like Jesus in life, character.
That's true.
That's important. So, and that one is not measured by how many people come to the church, because you can fill out the church and that might not necessarily be happening.
You can have 1,000 people in the congregation and not many people are genuinely walking with the Lord, right?
So that's important. But I think the external is important because when there's someone, and for me, I love the external that's when someone who's not been in church, not necessarily coming from another church, I appreciate it. It's amazing. It's great because we've had some gifted people who I am also coming from another church.
That's true.
I wasn't just agreeing. So
we're talking about recycling now.
Well, they call it transfer growth.
Transfer growth. Okay. I call it recycling. Sorry.
The people are
reduce, reuse, recycle. Sorry.
That's not really good. I would encourage you to take that part.
Sorry.
That's it. Transfer growth. That's the right term to use.
Yeah.
But I think in that aspect, I think it's helpful to have that. The other aspect of it is when it's someone who's new to the faith or someone who's maybe been invited to church, it's amazing because when they respond to an altar call, that for me is an amazing opportunity because when I think of the Lord added daily to the church, those who are being saved, that line of those who are being saved is very important. Like I know the Lord adds daily to the church and it does add it through different ways, but it's amazing to see when you can add the second dimension of those who are being saved.
That's true.
So, who was being added daily to the church. So I'm keen on growth. I'm also very keen on growth in terms of those who are new to the faith, those who have not experienced a life transforming encounter with Jesus, they have the opportunity to do so at the place we call home in church.
So it sounds to me like this is like multi-layered in the sense that number one, whomever is there, be it 5, be it 500, people are growing in their relationship, in their walk with the Lord. And they're experiencing that. But then in addition to that, in terms of size, it's growing. Transfer growth is okay because that's church life, right? It happens. People move around. But it's also important to make sure that growth from people choosing to follow Jesus who weren't following him, or people who've been on the sidelines for years who have not gone to church. I know you'd like to talk about people who've been on the sidelines too.
That's also something I'm passionate about. Because there's just a part of me that truly believes there should be an opportunity for those who maybe for some reason have gone through a season where it's a lean spell or wilderness,
or like the COVID season, right? The past 5 years. Exactly.
Gotten in the way, and they've kind of had to navigate their way through. But then it's really great when someone finds their way back. And finds their way back to being part of church life. And maybe in a in a much more authentic sense.
Yeah,
Where
exactly.
they finally say, this is what I really love about church.
Yeah.
Maybe I did it before from a place of religiosity and
Or because
I
that's what
need to
my
show up.
that's what I grew up with or
Yeah,
whatever.
the feet of
Yeah,
my parents, the feet
exactly.
of my
Yeah.
grandparents, the
Yeah.
feet of my guardians, whatever
Yeah.
that looks like. But now I'm doing it because I see the need
Yeah.
and I see what it brings to my life. And I see that in my showing up, I can also be a blessing to others.
And I'm able to make it my own,
Yes.
essentially.
So
Yeah.
that decision,
Yeah.
when someone's like, are you going, what are you doing for the weekend? I'm going to church. It's like, oh. And you're like, no, this is not a thing where I feel under pressure to do. I'm looking forward
I'm looking forward to
there are a few
going.
things I'm excited about. I have this to check in on. I have to follow up on with this person. And we have this event happening soon, and I'm excited. And so there's that ownership that's taking place that's not forced. So I think that's exciting.
Yeah, that's true. I love that. Because when I saw internal growth, external growth in notes, I was like, oh, what's Prince talking about? But that's good too. Sorry, I need to translate your academic. I don't know if you guys know, but Prince is very he's a very educated man over here. Oh, did you share with the group that you just finished your PhD?
Oh, we call it doctorate.
Oh,
But
same different. So I'm Dami and Prince is Reverend Dr. Prince.
know the title, but
you know, as a Nigerian woman, I take all your titles, Reverend Dr. Mrs. Dami.
all right, you can use them if you want to.
No, but I just think it's important for people to understand how your mind works. Like you're very much steeped in academia and all of that. So you think about things like transfer growth, internal growth, external growth. So I'm here to translate it from Prince speak to regular people speak.
Well, I would say to that also comes from being a philosophy.
Yeah. Philosophy, theology, and leadership.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so-
you live in the theory.
Well, I'm living the practice every day, every week. If I do say so, the philosophy has become quite real.
Yeah,
Just in
yeah,
terms-
that's
but,
true.
But the point to that is, so I recently wrapped up my doctorate earlier this year.
Yeah.
I did the final
Dissertation? Oh, okay.
hearing late last year in December. And then, wrapped up a few things. It's been a journey since 2021. And then we've wrapped up this year. So
Congratulations.
May.
Is it May? Turn up.
Put the dates up, but so that our Polish listeners don't feel they have to make it up from Poland.
Prince and this one, by the way, guys, it's one Polish listener. But we,
once again, but that being said, graduation is in May. It's exciting. I'm very, very thankful. And so, so I do think a lot in terms of the philosophical, the theological, and maybe the leadership implications.
Yeah.
Because those are the layers in which I've gone through formal education. But my mind is wired that way.
Yeah.
So philosophy was an eye opener. I didn't even know what it did for me was much more than just a degree. So it helped me put my words and the way I think into.
No, I just think it's important for the listeners to know. Yeah. So let's talk about this a little bit. Remember, this is Search My Heart, where we have honest conversations from an honest place. So you're a pastor, right?
Yeah.
If I come to you and I say, I love the Lord, I am devoted, I don't know, I do all these other Christian things, and my church attendance is strictly online because human beings are stressful, or because like I have a busy work schedule or whatever. Mm-hmm. Would you tag me as some sort of like less than Christian, or how would you interpret that?
Well, we'll set you up on a deliverance plan.
First, you can't say that.
It's a joke. I add that as a joke right now. If anybody crops that out, I would tell them to listen to the next few seconds. I said it's a joke multiple times.
Okay. First, we accept it's a joke.
Well, it's honest conversation from honest place. So, but in all honesty, I think it's once again trying to meet you where you are in terms of not making conclusions too quickly, because maybe a few years ago I would have said, look, just you're doing a lot of the basics, just get into church life. Like that's important. But I think I really want to teach and preach and guide people and shepherd people from a place of understanding. Yeah. Not from a place of hand downs and like, I want you to understand the truth behind the traditions of the Christian faith. The traditions are the packaging, the truth is the content. So in my way of thinking, I want you to understand why church attendance is important. Now, if people are stressful, I get that. And honestly, that's something we can't just force you to jump back into church, knowing that, because you could be coming from different things, maybe bad experiences,
Yeah. Church
things that
hurt, like we
church
talked
hurt, yeah,
about
things that
like
have happened
last
over the
week.
years
Yeah.
that may be difficult to kind of navigate and come through. So maybe in certain ways, it might just be hard to just say, you know what, I'm coming back to church. Because if you're doing all those things, your heart is probably in a place where you love the church, but there are certain things that are in the way. So I think it's journeying with you. And sometimes, if it's a case of just there's this initial resistance, is working with them to actually understand what that is, and not necessarily forcing it. Because sometimes what I've found when people make statements like, well, I really wish I could, but I can't quite get over the hump of like going into church life, getting involved on a Sunday, like go on Sundays. Sometimes even life groups or small groups is a little way to draw them in. So just connecting with 5 or 6 people in person online, where you just connect, you discuss a scripture
for life groups.
life groups. So Bible study, you share, and life groups or small groups is you do life with them. So it's a weekly thing or maybe bi-weekly, but you have to be involved with them, because that shows you what you could potentially be missing out on.
Yeah.
This is the opportunity to do life with people who love God and who love you.
Yeah.
And desire to see you grow.
Yeah. So I feel like you're doing a lot of helpful things in terms of, it sounds to me like if somebody were to come to you and say, I'm a strictly online church attendance Christian, your goal would be to figure out why, but to encourage them to find some sort of expression that works for them. It might not be the big church attendance. You might be starting with life group, but I guess so are you then saying that the proper way to do church is in person? Is that what you're suggesting?
Oh, the proper is a very
or the ideal.
Ideal is good. Ideal is good. And the reason why I say in person is because at the end of the day, this is we're living in an age where we follow great ministries and great women and men of God who are doing awesome things for God in different contexts and amazingly in different parts of the world. Some of them we haven't had the privilege to meet them, but we're still blessed by what they do. And so one of the things that can happen is you can be so blessed by someone you're following from afar, and you could feel like you're a part of that ministry, and in certain ways you are, because I'm blessed by a lot of people as well. So there's nothing wrong with that, but the community aspect is something that you can't really outsource that. It's not something you can, even if you meet people online and say, we're online once again, how was your week? We're here once again to hear the word on the stream. That's great.
The keyboard warriors.
So it's like, that's exciting. And then maybe you already know the people's like, oh, this person's commenting again, another great sermon. That's exciting. That's an online community in itself. But they are just things that when you go through life, you need a team, you need a group of people. And that's where I'm big on intentional Christian community living. That has to happen, and that's where my response will come from. It's more from a place of, I don't need you to boost the number of people on the chairs, but it's always nice when you're preaching and there's people in the pews. That's great, but at the end of the day, it's more than that.
Okay, so what if I told you that I don't go to church, but I have a group of like 5 Christian girls and guys. We come together every week, we pray, we watch the sermon together, we watch it in my house and all of that. Would that be sufficient?
You're going to church?
That's church. Okay, I see. So for you, as long as there's either you have, so let's define church attendance then, based on what you're saying. So it sounds to me like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me like what you're saying is church or living in Christian community in a sense is having 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, however many people that you meet with on a regular basis and do spiritual discipline or practices with.
And but there's the teaching of the word, and the opportunity for you to grow. And also the opportunity for you to, and part of that growth is also taking responsibility for discipling others. So this is where it gets,
I see.
You do not just stop in the excitement of your bubble
of what you're receiving.
You have to take responsibility for discipling others, because the Great Commission involves that.
And it's hard to have that infrastructure within a small group, right?
You can, but this is why the small groups could actually potentially grow. So if a group of 6 people are actually doing life together and loving God, at some point the dynamic should shift from just, we are really excited and meeting with God, and there should be a desire to share this with someone else.
I see.
That's the core essential. And this is for those who have gotten saved, like Christians, when you have this encounter where you finally accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, that initial season is, if it's really, really this encounter that's genuine, there's a hunger to share it with someone, just to talk about your experience. But the whole point of it is, I think, in the way it was set up, you want to tell people about this experience, and the more you're growing and experiencing the life that God gives you, you want to share it with others.
Okay, so that's interesting. So I see what you mean. So church attendance can vary. It can be coming to IEC, for example, every week, or fellowshipping in that big setting, but it can also be fellowshipping with a bunch of friends, a few friends, on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis, however regular, daily basis, whatever that is for you. Okay.
I think it has to involve both, because this is where, so there's the other side of church attendance that is maybe the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Where you have consistent Sunday attendance, but nothing else going on. You're not connected to the life of the church. And by the life of the church, you're not drawing from community with others. You're not involved in any disciplines, in any activities, in any spiritual ministry activities that could potentially help you to grow in your faith, but help you to pour into others as well. So whether it's evangelism, whether it's a prayer meeting, whether it's things that involve just drawing people, serving in the community, going out for outreach, things, a mission trip, things that allow you to express your faith in a different context. Things that maybe allow you to express your faith better when you go out into your spheres of influence or your regular workday context. When there's nothing that allows for that, then that's the other side of church attendance. That's not really the ideal church attendance.
Okay, so for you, it's being engaged.
Engagement is important.
This definition is like getting bigger and bigger.
No, but once again, it's the
being engaged in some sort of Christian community, no matter, and also participating in like discipling and evangelism, or growing that Christian community, regardless of what that setting is, in somebody's house or in like a big church setting or whatever. There's all these important parts or ingredients to growth. As long as that's in place, then that's church attendance.
Yeah. And I know that this is hard, but I would also say to that's also the call.
Yeah.
So we can polish it play around the edges, but when you go to the core, the authentic call of what the Christian is meant to be, that's the call.
And I think it's very important to say that, because what I'm hearing from what you're saying is the fact that you go to church every Sunday doesn't mean that you've checked all the boxes and you're like 100% there. And and the fact that you don't go every Sunday and you only watch online doesn't mean you're 100% there. There's just always room for growth for everybody. No matter where you are in the thing. Like, if you're attending regularly, how engaged are you? If you're engaged, how are you being part of discipling and growing the church? There's always a next step, different thing to do.
This is the and this conversation is really fascinating.
Why?
You're doing a great job hosting. I think when you look at it from the other aspect of through COVID, when the lockdown hit and everything, there are people's spiritual growth. There are people whose spiritual growth took on leaps and bounds. They became so on fire for God, and they had been in church for a long time, but they had been serving and being involved in church life, but all from a place of just doing. And they hadn't had the opportunity to be in His presence, to stay, to remain, to be refreshed,
to listen to the sermon.
So what really happened is, like, there's only few people needed. So it's like you do all the stuff, and sometimes when the lockdown was really at its peak, only the pastor was preaching. Maybe some people recorded some worship.
Yeah, that's true.
Session, but you didn't on the Sunday. You're not even there.
Yeah, that's true.
You're just streaming. You could record it during the week, and even those who did worship were not recording on the Sunday. They pre-recorded it.
Yeah,
and then maybe you had like 6 or 8, 7 songs. You just rotated them. So the first maybe 2-3 months, the people who took on a lot suddenly, at that point, it was like, if you stewarded that time well, it was an opportunity to just present.
Yeah.
Enjoy. And for me, it was refreshing for me, because I'd been serving a lot and I was so busy. But I caught a fire that I had before, that for some reason with the business of life had started to dwindle a bit. All of a sudden, the disciplines that I had, that it was a place where it caught on again. And it's still really producing for me today, because I think fundamentally there was a little bit of a shift that happened in that period.
Yeah.
And it went from just serving to also living out the faith and being blessed by it.
Yeah, like, and as we talk about this, like, it makes me think about my own personal experience going back to church after COVID. And I have to be honest, like it's been very hard. I sometimes I ask myself, if I wasn't married to a pastor, what would my church attendance look like? We're having honest conversations from an honest place, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember when during COVID, when we first went back to church, my attendance was not sporadic. Do you remember?
Yeah.
It was like a 3-on-1-off type of situation, because I just got into that rhythm of like, oh, I don't have to wake up early on a Sunday. I don't have to wake up early on a Sunday and like dress up and go to oh, I loved COVID church. That was the time I used to wear jeans to church, no makeup. It was so I used to wear slippers. I didn't care anymore at that point. It was
ratchet, but
I don't think it's ratchet.
no, I'm just
I
the
think
slippers aspect. That's why.
yeah, my slippers weren't cute at all, guys. Sorry, there's nothing wrong with slippers, but the slippers I was wearing in particular were not cute.
Yeah.
I just didn't care. Like I was like, I showed up to church today. A win is a win. And so like even for me, I still have that inertia, like going back to church. And so sometimes I want to slip back into my 3 Sundays on, 1 Sunday off type of routine that I was able to get away with when you were like an associate pastor and literally no eyes were on me. Nothing. I could really hide. And I remember at the time I was on the tech team as well. And tech team, you always sit at the back, right? So you could totally be in church and no one would see you anyway. And so like, even when I was there, people were like, I didn't see you. So I'm like, okay, never mind. I just could get away with a lot, right? Because like people didn't know when I was in and when I wasn't in. But now that I'm married to you and we sit together in front.
Yeah.
Any Sunday I'm not going in, I'm just like, oh my gosh. I have to think about it really, really hard. And I don't have that flexibility anymore to feel like I can go or not go. You know what I mean? So sometimes I wonder how much of my church attendance is wholeheartedly me wanting to go and how much of it is like, you know, I'm a lead pastor's wife and I have to set an example.
So my question to you,
and I have to show up.
Based on that is, how much of it, how much of coming to church still excites you? How much of it do you like just at the days now? And it might not be every day because once again it's like prayer, or it could be any other thing. There are days where you're just like, whoop, excited to pray. Other times it's the traditions of it, but you know there's life there. So you get there, even though I know I have to go and I have to pray, and then at some point the life you draw from it. But when it comes to church attendance, of going to church, is there still an excitement you find that's there, or has that gone?
I think, and now that I think about it, like my service in church these days is less on Sundays and more outside of Sundays because I help with the young adults, right? Yeah. Whereas before we came to this church, my service at church was on Sundays.
And also on other days of
and also on other days of the week. So I think that might be it as well in terms of now I literally go to sit and listen to the sermon and participate in worship. Whereas, and connect with people after. Whereas before, I would have something, a project that I'm excited about that would take me to church. So like when I was on the worship team, we would have had to go to church on the Thursday before. We practiced exciting new songs. You know, there's those songs that are like, wow, when I harmonize this, it's going to kill. Like, and so you're excited to go do that and to like watch the congregation like learn this new song with you. Or like when we were on the tech team and we were figuring out how to make everything work for the live stream and how to fix things. I think it was easier to show up because I felt like there were people relying on me for something. Whereas now I'm showing up to really just receive mostly on Sundays. And so like, I actually find that what makes church more exciting for me is when there's something for me to do when I'm going into church. Whereas like if I'm just going to sit and listen, I'm less incentivized to show up every week.
So when you talk about what you bring to the table in terms of, I don't know if bring to the table is a good
how I participate,
church. And do you think that there's nothing else you contribute beyond just what you do in terms of serving in, for example, the media team or the ushering team, or because do you think you bring that there's nothing else when it comes to after the service or before the service in terms of the community, the people you talk to, the conversations you have?
I know,
Does that
but then there's no,
rank as important?
but you're not like obligated to anybody. You're
Well-
just there's no one that's expecting there's nothing that's going to like fall apart because you're not there.
How do you know that though?
Because I didn't show up on a Sunday.
Not fall apart though, like because the fall apart is a little bit.
Yeah, fall apart is dramatic, but like in terms of like if you're on schedule to do the PowerPoint for the Sunday and you don't show up, there's going to be a problem. All right, our producer here produces service for her church some Sundays. If the producer for the live stream doesn't show up,
Actually, there's a backup. To make sure that it-
yeah, but then everybody is in a frenzy, right?
Of course, yeah.
So because you know that basically your team will be like, I don't know, crunched and at a disadvantage and all of that because you don't show up, then you're forced to show up.
But you see, I think that's also part of the mindset that we really need to adjust when it comes to a church attendance.
Yeah.
Because the conversations that you might have with people after the service or before the service, as much as the church service itself doesn't fall apart, we've actually chalked that off to it's a need to have. Like if I'm able to go on this.
Yeah.
But sometimes what you're able to say into someone's life could make the difference between them having a week where they make better decisions in their work with.
But that's assuming that people are having conversations when they go in.
Well, once again, this is going back to the default setting.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like the ideal versus what is actually happening can be two different things. So
Yeah.
I agree. But my point here is if you show up to church with the mindset that, you know what, I actually will be a blessing to someone. I expect that in a conversation,
I see what you
in
mean.
a prayer, in showing up, in a word of you are looking great or you did amazing. How did the job interview go? That those simple conversations could be mighty helpful to them.
That's true.
So, but that default mindset is something that I understand because what you're saying, we are really having honest conversations.
Sorry, guys.
So
I'm in no way, by the way, I'm in no way suggesting that people should go to church 3 days on, 1 day off. I'm just trying to communicate that this is how I feel personally. It's challenging.
You would say you're Gen Z-ish?
I am Gen Z. I am Gen Z, bro. Check my birth certificate.
Back to this matter. So in that way, what you're saying is definitely, it will resonate with a lot of people. So I think it's important to have that opinion and that view out there. But once again, this is the part where when your mentality when it comes to church attendance is the body, and every part of the body is important, then you understand that whether mixing sound or directing the live stream, an usher or the person who prays with someone who said I had a rough week and my boss is giving me a lot of problems, I might quit my job this week and I don't even know what I'm going to do next. A simple 10-minute conversation with them and a prayer with them and a check-in the next Sunday could be the difference between that prayer was helpful. It gave me some perspective in the I went back and I was able to have a productive conversation with my boss. It's not rosy now, but I was stopped from making major decisions based on the emotions I was feeling. Now, some people might say, well, that's just what happens when you do life with people. You're able to share, this is what I'm dealing with. But at the end of the day, there's something called the third place in society when it comes to, so it's first work and then home, and everybody else needs a third place. Now, the church is usually that place for a lot of people.
A lot of Christians,
for a lot of Christians, but it could be somewhere else.
Yeah.
But in the design of how we're meant to do life, that third place is meant to be the church in terms of a place where you actually get proper Christian counsel and an opportunity to do life with people who do not just love you, but they also have a view of life that's based on the Bible. And that's a solid thing when it comes to your work with God. So this is what I would say once again to that. It's like, if your mindset is not I'm showing up to actually be a blessing to people, then you're really missing out on
I see what you mean.
You show up.
So you're saying like regardless of if you have an official role, you're going with the mindset of I don't know who I'm going to bless today, but in showing up and in like fellowshipping or talking to one person, two people, whatever, I can be a blessing to somebody.
You know the song?
What?
The Lord will bless someone today.
Oh, is that for?
The Lord will bless.
Is that for like? Oh,
it may be you. It may be
It
me.
may be someone by your
It may be
side.
someone
And
by
God will
your
bless the person through you or through
Now, usually
somebody
people
else.
sing it when they're about to hear the word.
Yeah,
But the truth of it is that song has an implication for just being in church.
that's true.
But it can bless anyone. And sometimes it's when the things you say or the things you don't even say, it's like I'm looking to this, say, and just that's enough for someone to say, oh, I guess
That's
what
true.
I thought about doing is not quite it's not the normal that I'm thinking.
I see. So, like, I think what I'm understanding is church attendance can be more fulfilling when you go with more of a blessing others mindset than a
Yes.
consumer mindset.
Yes.
So, like, if it's not just
But
about what
already
you're
doing
about
that
to
even
receive.
in terms of the I'm going to serve, it's just expand what that looks like.
Yeah, I see
Because
what
if
you mean.
serving is
Even if
just-
you're just sitting in the
Exactly,
service,
like-
it doesn't mean you can't be
Yeah,
a blessing to
expand what
somebody.
that looks like.
Yeah.
If you're just taking it from the place of, and once again, people underestimate how 5-10 minutes conversations can be so powerful.
Yeah.
But oh my goodness, people could be in a work setting where and post-COVID, the number of people who are working alone in front of laptops and everything, they don't even have meaningful conversations.
Yeah,
for that
that's
time.
true.
So they show up to church and they walk through something with you, and you're thinking, yeah, I didn't play a role, but
Yeah.
you don't know what you've done for them.
This is like super unrelated, but this conversation is really like I feel like I need to go have like a therapy mini session after about my experience with church, because this conversation is really making me realize that I miss being on the down low in church. Do you remember our old church where there's people that I would have met 3 times and they'll still forget who I am? And there's people who call me Demi, like who would know me for 5 years and still called me Demi and all that. And I loved it. Like I wasn't even hiding in plain sight. I was like so low key. Who I was, if I came, where I sat, really didn't matter, and I miss that.
That's fair.
I miss that a lot. Like I miss that a lot. I think now it does feel like I have to dress up more. I'm not saying that that's a requirement. It just feels that way. I can't just show up in my casual jeans looking like struggle to church anymore. And I'm not, other people in church can. I just feel like there's an image, and you dress up really nice. I'm not trying to look like whatever beside you too, you know? I don't have that many makeup free Sundays anymore. So this makes me really reflect, and think about it. Like, if these things are actually hindering my church experience, and maybe I need to redefine and rethink about what it looks like to show up in church for me, Dami, and making sure that it's still authentic and it's still, you know what I mean? It's still coming from what I want to do as opposed to obligation. So this has been a good this conversation has been a blessing to me. There's a lot for me to go reflect on.
Like I said, you've really shared, you've helped me to unpack some of the things that were in my heart, but my necessarily were not in the notes.
No, in the notes,
So
yeah.
this is really good.
Okay, so speaking of the notes, let's do the Reddit story as we wrap up for today. All right, how bad is it to watch online? My boyfriend and I are starting to watch sermons online at this church and have mostly watched online since quarantine started. I'm assuming this Reddit story was probably closer to COVID.
Yeah. But I think it's really good.
It's really good. Yeah. He's always felt uncomfortable going in person because he has real bad Asperger's syndrome, to where he's almost at a panic state when people talk to him there who he doesn't know well. He loves services and just prefers to watch the streams because of this. My dad heavily disapproves of us watching online, despite me just trying to accommodate my boyfriend's condition. Given we will eventually get married, he knows I plan on bringing us on site to church at that time. Please tell me, is it really wrong for us to be watching online sermons right now under these circumstances?
There's an update there.
Yeah, do you want me to read it?
No,
I figured we'd answer before the update, right? Yeah.
I don't think it's wrong. And I think that this is the thing. There are major issues. When I read through this, because there's a bunch of comments, one of the responses that I felt really powerful was, what is the church? Where 2 or 3 are gathered. There's you, your boyfriend.
Maybe bring daddy too.
You guys are doing church.
Daddy can come join you too.
just 2 or 3. Yes.
Yeah.
So there's the foundation. So, and I love that, because for me, it's just, when the church thing is, we didn't see you in church, and that just, and even as a pastor, I can slip into that. because I joke a lot. So if people hear that and it's like, oh, the pastor's disappointed, I really don't want that to be their initial response, because the goal of saying, oh, we didn't sing in church is not, once again, you've missed out on church, and the pew could have been full if you were there in that section. You not being there meant one more person wasn't there and the numbers were not as high as they could have been. It's not really the point. So once again, if he's going through things where he's not really comfortable, you have to kind of cater to
Not comfortable as a condition.
I'm not really downplaying it. That's not what I'm doing. But in terms of when they're obviously medical or what has been actually analyzed, and this is like a medical condition that doesn't even allow you to enjoy the experience. You can't just gloss over that and say, so there's things. But what I love about the fact that they were watching consistently. And the goal is still to find a way to church, but they have to do it in a way that's authentic to them. You can't force it. So while I get words like, we'd love to see you in church, but when people say I watch online, I actually ask them, what did you take from it? Like, what stood out to you? What was the sermon like? And it's not from a place of show me that you are listening. If you watch the sermon, then what did I say in minute 22? No, not necessarily from that.
I can't tell you what you said in minute 22.
Even for those inside,
we can't tell you, Pastor. Sorry.
As a sidetrack, this is what I love about preaching and teaching. I don't believe you have to preach 150 new sermons. I think sometimes it's good to repeat a few sermons, because sometimes what people think they heard, you can preach a sermon in the space of a few months apart, and someone come and say, "This is new. I've never heard it before."
And Prince is like,
you'll be shocked that.
Didn't we talk about this 3 months ago?
I preached it 3 months ago. Same thing, different series. Same thing, different series. Not even that different. So, but then you're like, wow, that's interesting. You just heard this. So, yeah, it's new. It's good stuff. So, all right. So, but to that point, it's like, at the end of the day, it's really powerful to be able to watch online. And if the goal is to, at some point, be part of church community, my bigger question will be, how are you guys drawing life? Like, how are you guys being encouraged? Are you connecting with anyone? I think that's even more important. So that would be my response to that.
Yeah. And one of the responses from here as well is, I really like it. It's somebody said it's not the same. However, if you're at a point where you can't afford to drive to church, or are sick, or have a different valid excuse, online church can work as a temporary substitute. I get the convenience factor and overall comfort change in watching from your home, but the overall goal should be to eventually be able to attend church in person, as that's the best way to be truly connected to the rest of the church body. When you're streaming online, do you talk to anybody else in the church body? Are you available if someone needed to talk? If someone needed someone to talk to? If you're like me, when I used to stream church, the answers are no. Don't feel guilty about watching online now, since that's all you can afford to do. But I'd encourage you to make it your goal to return to in-person church as soon as you're able to. And what I'll just say here is, no, sometimes it's good to be honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
Waking up to go to church, if your church is like a dress-up church, wearing the makeup, the dress, figuring out what's appropriate, you know what I mean? Going, sitting down, getting up, going back home, it can be daunting. It's especially like if you lead a busy life from Monday to Friday. And I have a friend who's always joking about how, like, you know, for non-Christians, they get a 2-day weekend. And then for Christians, we get Saturday to do everything, and then Sunday. And for some reason, when you come back from church on Sunday, like, you're like wiped. You need that Sunday nap by the time you do lunch and all of that. So let's be honest, it's a sacrifice. Going to church regularly every Sunday, it's not easy, and it can just feel like, I don't know, for some reason that Sunday morning sleep, it just hits different. It slaps. Like, I don't know, Prince might not experience this because he's a pastor, but for some reason, like, sleeping in on Sunday just hits great. It's amazing. And so like if we're being honest, it's sometimes for this guy it's a health condition, right? But for a lot of us, it's a comfort thing, right? So I think we just always have to remember, how I think about church attendance is, I get 7 days a week. If God only requires me to show up in person to service 4 hours out of the whatever many hours I have that week, that's worth it. So that's how I think about it.
And it's not 4 hours for most people.
It's not. No. When I'm counting the time from when I wake up to when I come back home.
Oh.
Oh yeah.
But even that's still not 4 hours for most
No,
people.
for a lot of people, like you wake up, get ready for about an hour, you drive for 30 minutes, service is like an hour 30, and then you drive home for another like what 30? Yeah, I think it's like a 4 hour commitment to from when you like get ready to
Okay, fair
versus
enough.
yeah, I think if you don't go to church, you get an extra few hours of sleep. So like it is a commitment, but I think it's always important to remember who you're doing it for and why you're doing it. It's for the Lord to honor him, number one, even when it's not convenient. And then number two, it's for all the benefits that we've talked about here today. And number three, it's an opportunity for you to give back as well to other people within your church community and for you to grow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to encourage everybody that's listening who might be struggling with going to church in person, that it's worth it. It's not easy. It's important to sit down and reflect what's hindering you, what makes it easy, what makes it harder. Do you not like going to your church? You know what I mean? It's important to really
Get to the root of the
get to
issues.
the root of the issues. Is it the waking up part, or is it that church is just not exciting to you anymore? Or do you have issues with people in church that makes it more draining? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's many. It's important to reflect and think about what's holding you back post COVID and work through those with the aim of living in Christian community. What do you think about that?
I think that's good. That's a good way to wrap up.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
Just want to say que está pasando to our listeners from Mexico.
Oh my gosh. One listener from Mexico. We love you. Thank you.
Listeners from Poland. Look,
Te amo.
you have to speak with vision, broad vision.
Okay, sorry. Our
Polish
listeners.
and Mexican listeners, those who are listening from Canada, we greet you.
Te amo. We're making a heart right now for you.
And then for those listening incognito from all over the world, we see you.
We see you.
On scene platform. We recognize the support and we thank you, because this is once again really a place where we want to have honest conversations from an honest place.
Yes.
So we hope you enjoyed the episode.
Yes.
Give us to subscribe on YouTube, on the different platforms.
We have Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube.
Yeah. Different places.
Instagram.
Follow us on Instagram as well.
Yes.
We want to continue to bring you honest conversations that edify, but also maybe get you to think about things differently than how you already think about them.
Yeah.
And on that note, we'll be signing out with a signature sign out, which is
What is our signature sign out?
God bless you.
Oh, that's new. I didn't know about that. Okay. God bless you, I guess. See you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.